Good evening and welcome to the Pompey Politics Podcast.
I'm Ian Tiny Morris.
And I'm Simon Sansbury. Hello and good evening and welcome to our 7th hustings. We've just got a slight technical thing there. We just seem to have lost one of our candidates. So I'm just going to try and see what's happening there. But welcome Ian, welcome Scott.
Welcome.
Generally very clumsy, Simon, to have lost one of our candidates. And as you say, we're in our 7th and final hustings. So this year we've managed to get half of the wards in Portsmouth, compared to I think 3 or 4 in the first year. So it's been marvellous, and thanks to all of the candidates that have taken time out to talk A, to us, and B, to share their position with the voters before Thursday comes and it's time to finally put your X in the box. And this evening, hopefully, we're going to be joined by 2, I would use the word old friends of the podcast. We've got Scott joining us from the Conservatives, I think might have been one of our very first live guests, and Mariam, known as Mazzy from Labour, who joined us probably about 18 months ago on the Violence Against Women and Girls episode. So welcome to, hopefully, you both, if Simon's managed to get Mazzy back.
So Mariam Mazzy is just on her way back in. She's just having some Wi-Fi issues her end. So what we'll do is we'll carry on while she can get that sorted. So our apologies.
Little overview of the Hilsea ward then, Simon. And
that sounds like a good idea. Have you done the research on that one?
Well, I will say yes, but it would be mostly a lie because you did almost all the legwork this week, as is the way, as we know on our podcast. But yes, Hilsea are near neighbours. Simon and I based in Cosham, Hilsea just across the Hilsea roundabout there. So ward known to many, most people driving through it to get out of the city if it's but no reflection on Hilsea itself. We got woodland there with the Hilsea lines. There's the Mountbatten Centre, shops, lots of ex-services housing, a pretty vibrant and colourful ward in itself. Got the rugby club in it. I should have worn my rugby club blazer for this evening's hustings, perhaps. So yeah, a vibrant ward, and politically, it's one of those ones that at first glance you might think you know where you stand in Hilsea, but looking back over the last 3 elections, in 2019, Scott Payter-Harris was elected with about 36% of the vote, and was elected reasonably comfortably. In the following election in 2021, the Conservatives massively increased their vote share to sort of 58%. Labour did pretty well in that one as well. But then last year, everything changed. So the Portsmouth Independence Party won the ward with 36% of the vote, just narrowly squeaking ahead of the Conservatives with 35%. They took vote share off of everybody. So when we look at the ward now, it really looks like a much more open ward, particularly with Labour having a surge nationally. So we all look forward to May the 4th and seeing who the good people of Hilsea are going to return.
Indeed, and I can confirm we've got Mazzy back with us. Thank you, Mazzy, for making that work, for quickly turning that router back off and on again, or whatever it was that you had to do. Excuse me while I just sort out the tech our end. Just before we kind of go into the opening speeches, I'll just do a quick explanation of how the hustings will work. So each candidate has a 2-minute opening speech and a 1-minute closing speech. For candidates that did actually respond to our invite, we've also offered them the opportunity to either provide a recorded or a pre-written statement. And I can confirm that the Liberal Democrat candidate, Peter Williams, and the Portsmouth Independence Party candidate, Emily Strudwick, have both provided written speeches, which I will read. on their behalf. So we will have those. Each question will pose. Each candidate will have 90 seconds, up to 90 seconds, to answer each question. And then when both have answered it, they'll have an optional 30-second rebuttal to be able to use that. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense. One other thing that's a bit weird about this this election is that this will be the first election across the country, across England, where you will need to have photo ID in order to vote. So if you haven't already procured some, it's too late for you to get some. But there is, if you scan the QR code in the top left-hand side of our screen, that will take you to our website where there are links to the Electoral Commission and indeed to Portsmouth City Council's website where you can find out information about what photo ID is relevant. But it's probably worth, if you don't always carry your photo ID with you, setting a reminder so that on polling day you remember to take it with you. Because in the trial in Gosport in 2018, 45% of the people that turned up and were turned away didn't come back to vote. So do bear that in mind. We want everyone to be able to use their vote, whoever they're voting for. It's your vote, your voice. Please don't lose it. But scan the code there and you'll be able to find out some more details.
Marvellous. So just as you start to prepare to draw on your acting skills, Simon, to read the other two candidates' opening statements, now Mazzy's had a chance to breathe, and Scott, so welcome to you both.
Thank you, Ian. Nice to see you both.
Thank you both and welcome. Thank you for coming on to the show. So I am going to get myself, I'm not going to put on any voices. So don't worry, there's no attempt of me actually trying to impersonate anybody in any of these. So first up is Peter Williams, who's the LibDem candidate. The other candidate in the ward vying for your vote is Emma Murphy from the Green Party. So there's 5 candidates on the ballot this time, but we have Peter's opening statement. So I'm going to get myself sorted and read that now. Okay, and we've just lost Mazzy again.
Mazzy.
Hopefully she'll come back again.
Just press on, Simon, and we'll hope Mazzy to be able to return soon.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so Peter has always lived in the Portsmouth area and has been in Hilsea for over 25 years. Initially, he studied at Portsmouth Grammar School and then attended St John's College, Southsea, to study GCSEs and A-levels. During his studies, he started his career at Sainsbury's Portsmouth, then worked for Lloyds Bank for many years, for local branches in both personal and business banking, and more recently managing staff at their telephone banking centre in Fareham. He spent several years serving as a special constable based at Cosham, supporting the community to make our streets safer. Currently, he's a director of a local company helping small businesses. Peter joined the Liberal Democrats in early 2017, dismayed by the failure of both the Conservative and Labour Party to put national interest before their own. He actively supported the party during the 2017 and 19 general elections and has continued regularly to campaign with councillors and candidates from across the city. Peter believes he is the only candidate standing in Hilsea that actually lives in the ward. And Peter Williams is standing as the Liberal Democrat candidate for Hilsea, as he believes the city is best served by a Liberal Democrat-controlled Portsmouth City Council. And I emphasise that all of those words were Peter's. They are not ours. We're just literally reading out what he sent to us.
Thank you, Simon. Have we got Mazzy back?
We have indeed got Mazzy.
I do apologise about that. I'm connected to the Wi-Fi now. I was connected to my phone before, and phone didn't want to do what it wanted to do.
Damn your phone for being so recalcitrant. Well, thank you very much for struggling through that, and welcome back. I'm going to get our visage of Peter off our screens. So then next up is Mazzy. So if you can just give me a second, I'll get us into the place that I need to start your speech, if that's okay. So.
Of course.
Give me a second.
And just while Simon's sorting that out, I think it's fair to clarify that whilst your name on the ballot paper will be Mariam, almost everyone who knows you as Mazzy. Is that correct?
Definitely in Portsmouth, yeah, which I quite like. It's a funny little thing.
No, that's fine. Are the entertaining?
No worries.
we
Many
just
people know me
explain
as
that so that-
Tiny, so that's I
No worries. Okay, so we're good and ready when you are, Mazzy. Thank you.
Okay, so hi, my name's Mariam, and I've lived in Portsmouth for 6 years, and I never left. So recently, Labour managed to secure £77.5 thousand for the cost of living within the council. Something that I really do advocate for is Pompey B. Pompey B do something called participatory budgeting, which means that we actually get people involved in talking about the budgeting, about where it needs to go to, and prioritise the public to be able to get that money for the living crisis. So I would work with the residents in Hilsea that need it the most in the most accessible way possible. In Portsmouth in the last 6 years, I have worked for 2 charities. That's what I currently do right now. I work for a theatre-based LGBTQ charity as a diversity and access officer that works to main stage unheard voices, so to work to main stage voices such as working class mum or young people who don't normally get heard. I also work for a charity called Arms Around the Child. So they host a stage at Victoria's, but they enable people to go abroad and volunteer if they'd like to in Ghana, South Africa, or India. And then this summer, I'm launching my own organisation, Queer POC Pompey, or people who do identify as queer or someone from the great majority, not just to reclaim their joy in that, but also to know where to be signposted. Because of the upbringing I have, I am quite lucky to know different things that I can do when it comes to different personal situations, such as casework as well. When it comes to addressing certain caseworks and knowing where to go to, I had to do that as a child growing up and as a teenager. It wasn't really a choice, but it means that it is something that I do know how to do. When it comes to Hilsea, I know there are some severe issues facing the people of Hilsea. Hilsea has one GP practice that's about to shut down, and the pharmacy is also about to shut down, meaning that health access to the people in Hilsea is going to become a lot harder than it already is under the current government that we already have. We also know that there's a fly tipping problem that's happening at Southampton Avenue by the Quick Save that is also empty. People in Hilsea, I think what we tend to find a lot is that the north of Portsmouth tends to be forgotten, but Hilsea was the first ward that I visited when I came to Portsmouth as a student. And there's a lot of beauty there, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of resources there that haven't actually been utilised for the people that live there. And you see it slightly happening more and more, and I want to be able to do something about that.
Okay, thank you, Mazzy. That did go beyond the time, but I didn't.
I'm so
that's
sorry.
okay.
I was like, I finished early.
Scott, I shall try to allow you the same amount of time out of fairness. Don't worry. You were kind of just catching your breath. So, Scott, if you can just give me a moment to get you up on the screen, and then we will we'll be ready for your speech. So. Okay, Scott, when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Simon. Good evening. Obviously, my name is Scott Payter-Harris. I've lived in Portsmouth all my life. I've been fortunate enough to look after Hilsea Ward since 2015, and it has been the greatest honour of my life to represent it. I mean, in my time on the council, I've chaired various committees, and I'm currently the licensing committee chair. And I've also had the spokesperson roles for housing for 3 years. I'm currently the traffic transportation portfolio spokesperson for the Conservative group. I must know I've lived and worked in the ward over the years, and I'm proud to say that our family business is still trading in Hilsea with my uncle Pete and my mother at the helm. And it's been operating from its current site since 1994. So we have a real strong connection to the ward, and I think that's important to have that strong connection to understand what residents actually want and what they feel. I enjoy working with lots of residents and sorting out their problems, working with them in partnership. Some of the issues that have been covering Hilsea recently, my work has cut across ASB, the proliferation of HMOs, that I'm sure we're going to hear about both of those later, abandoned vehicles and cars that are just being left on the roadside for months on end, and about road safety. So those issues are stuff that I've been working on for a considerable amount of time. We've had some successes, but there is a lot more to do. I mean, We talk about the ageing population as well in Hilsea. That has become an issue, and I think I'm not going to go too much on it because I know you guys have some questions on those issues that are coming up shortly. But I think that's an opening gambit from me.
Thank you very
Scott.
much, Scott. That's lovely. Okay, so that's our your opening speeches. So the last one is the one from Emily. Now Emily's is written in the first person, so you'll excuse me for leaving it that way rather than editing it in the just as in the same way that that I've done with Peter's and with all the others that we've had across the hustings. So give me a second. Okay, so firstly, thank you for inviting me onto the podcast for tonight's hustings. I apologise that I cannot attend. As you'll be aware, I have watched Pompey Politics religiously for 2 years now, so I do hope you'll invite me on again one day. Hilsea has always held a special place in my heart. I first came to the area about 10 years ago. I worked with my partner out the back of the pizza house in Hilsea Market. That's where I first found my love for the local company Melted, which I still use to this day for a weekly breakfast treat. Since then, I have worked in the hair industry, and more recently, since COVID, I have been doing home hair. I have a number of clients in Hilsea, so I'm in the area often. Hilsea is an amazing area with some amazing leisure and culture facilities. You have the Foxes Forest and Hilsea Lines, where I often walk my puppy Freddie. The squash club, bowls, tennis and gymnastics centre, and of course the Mountbatten Centre on the border. There are so many positive things within the Hilsea community. Equally, over the last few years, we've seen a dramatic increase in crime and antisocial behaviour, to the point where residents have had to take the lead in tackling local crime. This is wrong. We've got a serious lack of healthcare provision and community space. I often feel that until recently, Hilsea has been neglected by its local representatives. This is why I decided to stand to make a difference where I can, to do my best to improve an area that I truly feel passionate about. If elected on Thursday, I won't be a councillor that appears once a year around election time. I will join my friend and colleague Councillor Russell Simpson and work week in, week out on local issues and supporting residents with their concerns. I wish the best of luck to the other candidates. I don't think people truly appreciate how hard it is actively campaigning and running for council until they've tried it. So whatever happens on Thursday, I just want to thank the other candidates, especially Scott, for a really positive, proactive and energised campaign.
Thank you, Simon. So that moves us neatly out of the opening speeches and into our questions. So if I can start with question one, which is, you've spoken to a lot of residents. What are they telling you on the doorstep? And can I ask that first, please, to Scott?
Yeah, no problem, Ian. The big issue that we have on the doorstep at the moment is antisocial behaviour. I mean, ASB is an ongoing issue in the ward, and it's something that I've actively been working on, especially I'd probably say the last 2 years. We had a general spike last June where it was basically out of control. And then that's when the work with the police that was quite important, that we got Operation Relief implemented. And once Operation Relief was implemented, we see crime go down. Obviously, that has not solved the problem. So we need stuff like, for example, multi-agency working, which includes the play and youth service, the housing providers, the safeguarding from the council. So we've set up that with Vivid Housing as well. So the areas that are causing some issues, we've actually got some multi-agency working with the police involved, because it's not just picking these people up and arresting them. Sometimes they need some education, sometimes they need something to do. And also as well, what is their housing situation? Is that causing an issue for them to actually go out and cause antisocial behaviour? So that's been a big issue that's been causing. We also have an ageing population, which was recently confirmed in the 2021 census. I mean, this means health outcomes are incredibly important, such as dentistry and GPs. And thankfully, we've had an uplift in dentistry appointments recently, thanks to the work from the MP for Portsmouth North. But obviously, those things don't stop. And the other one, it seems to come up quite a lot, is the abandoned vehicles that are in the ward. So a lot of people have abandoned vehicles, especially down Northern Parade and London Road. I was quite successful back before Christmas in securing a weekly check from the council. So the council will actually go down, check each vehicle, and to ensure that they are taxed and MOT'd so they can be removed because it's quite a complex process. So there are three things that keep coming up on the door: health outcomes, ASB, and abandoned vehicles.
Thank you, Scott. And Mazzy, what are people telling you on the doorstep?
So I find myself quite lucky that I have had a chance to talk to people. Well, unfortunately, I haven't been that good in health. Things that are coming up are things such as antisocial behaviour in the area. And as someone that has grown up in an area that had antisocial behaviour, I think we also need to realise that a lot of antisocial behaviour is going to rise during the living crisis, without certain resources or places being there for people to go to, and people have been struggled so much. This is what we see in areas. And when you look at areas with really high poverty, you do see more of those things be carried out. I recently had the opportunity, it's not the opportunity. I recently was checked into the Orchards, which is just off of Loxway Road. And you meet many different residents in there with many different things going on. But hearing the resident story of how they got in there were all quite different, and all things that really have gotten worse during the living crisis because of the cuts that we are seeing and the cost of things going up. People now aren't able to look after their health the way they used to be, because it's hard to get that health care that we're all entitled to, meaning that our mental health's getting worse and our physical health's getting worse. At the same time, a lot of people are either being expected to work or go and get things that they potentially are struggling to get because of how things aren't accessible. So another thing that we've also seen happen in the area with, my brain is, I've recently not been too well. I think while I'm on this topic, I am going to mention I'm really concerned about the GP in Hilsea. This is something that I haven't really heard being mentioned a lot, but when I talk to people in Hilsea, this is what a lot of people in Hilsea are telling me. They're worried about their GP shutting down and their pharmacy shutting down. If the GP shuts down and the pharmacy shut down, it also drives up the more people going to doctors and GPs out of the area. It shuts down the accessibility of people actually being able to go to their GPs and to their doctors to get medical help, so that they are not falling back onto the system once again. Everyone, every single person in the world deserves access to health. If the GP shuts down in Hilsea, more residents in Hilsea are going to struggle to get the healthcare that they deserve. And that has been harder to get with the more things that have come in, such as you are only allowed to talk about one thing at an appointment. You have to call up at 8 a.m, but some people can't do that. Some people are at work. So I think we really need to reevaluate with what people are worried about their GPs. People are worried about the level of time, and people have a reason to be worried about these things because this is where they live, this is their home. So these are some things that I really do want to tackle.
Thank you, Mazzy. Would either of you like to use a 30-second rebuttal to comment on what either has said?
Scott?
Yes, please.
Go, Scott.
It's just on the nature of the GP that's been mentioned. I don't know about any GP practice that is closing. I know the issue that was with the pharmacy that is proposed to be closed from a merger perspective, but the Health and Wellbeing Board at the council, after I actually went and gave a deputation to say that this is a bad idea, would create a gap, actually sent a letter to NHS England to say that they don't believe that the pharmacy should close. So at the moment, the process of that merger is not complete. So the likelihood is at the moment the pharmacy probably will stay open. So I think that's quite key in that argument. That's just some of the facts of what's actually happening in the ward at the moment.
I think I was, sorry, am I allowed to?
Yeah, so Mazzy, you've got 30 seconds to respond to that. Okay. If you could keep tight on time, that would be appreciated.
So I was just wondering the question of what residents in Hilsea have been telling me. Not all residents in Hilsea will know what necessarily is going on with the practice of that pharmacy and with the fact that there is only one GP. So with what people have told me, people in Hilsea are concerned about their pharmacy still with everything going through, and they need to know what's going on with it.
Thank you both for keeping to time there, and I will just pass you over to Simon for question 2.
Okay, thank you very much, Ian. So, so our second question is what needs to be done to ensure Hilsea's shops can survive? And I'll ask that question first to Mazzy, please.
So I think for shops to survive, more local businesses also need more support, and they need to know what they're entitled to, what sort of grants they're entitled to, especially with the cost of things that are rising so rapidly. You can see how many local businesses are actually shutting down as well, not just within Hilsea, but also nationally. I think we also need to help local businesses be able to adapt. So do things such as click and collect. If that's something that they want to do, they need to be able to have the access to be able to do that, to still retain customers in a certain way. I think we also need to look at accessibility with parking in certain areas for people to reach the shops they want to go to, and also working with the shops and finding out what they need to still keep going in the areas.
Okay, thank you. Scott, same question.
Thank you for that, Simon. Hilsea does have a smaller range of shops, which I think they do need to be protected. I'm just going to throw a few shout outs now to Wheeler's Bakery, where I'm quite a frequent customer these days, and I probably shouldn't be watching my weight. But also stuff like Giorgio's, the new pizza bar that's opened. I mean, that's very important to the area. And also the fact that we only have 3 pubs in Hilsea, the Felix, the Green Post, and the Coach and Horses, all that I have ventured in with my former ward colleague Frank Jonas. But I mean, I think Maz just spoke about the need to bid for money and funding. Well, the government has actually put 3.6 billion in the Towns Fund, which is helping unleash forward economic potential of 101 places across England. The council can bid for that money. The Future High Streets Fund, there's facilities to facilitate regeneration projects across 72 high streets. There is an opportunity for the council again to bid for that money. Those projects can put improvements to transport infrastructure, new homes, and even the transformation of underused spaces, which I think is important. And we also have the High Street Task Force, which is looking at empty shops and business rate support. So there are opportunities to bid for money, and I think it's the nature of PCC to actually do that. But I totally agree, and I think it's a fair point that Maz raised about funding, and I think that is something that these businesses need to survive and to encourage more people to shop local. I mean, I can give you an example of just some shops that I go to, but I think getting the council to get behind a proactive shop local campaign would be a great idea, and to bid for those money that the government have put up.
Thank you, Scott. Does anybody need to use their 30-second rebuttal? No? Okay. Lovely. Ian.
So question 3, a particularly hot topic for Hilsea. How can the balance of affordable homes versus houses of multiple occupancy be balanced, Scott?
Yes, I think personally, and I think the question that you've raised, both of them don't fit together. Affordable housing does not fit into large-scale HMOs when they charge over £700 per calendar month for a room. I think we need the council needs to stop failing when they try and build their homes and incentivise developments to meet a Portsmouth target for affordable homes, rather than build places which are just completely out of reach for local people. I mean, the example I'm going to give, with HMOs, in my view, the rate they're going, they're destroying communities in Hilsea. But people, I understand, need somewhere to live, and that's important. Why we have to get these large-scale developments correct. So we have the development at Tipner West, for example, where we've seen the council throw an exorbitant amount of money on a development that didn't have a brick laid in the ground for something that they're never going to build, and the type of people that were going to live there from the affordable element was just not achievable. So this has led the rise in HMOs and super HMOs, and they destroy communities, and they do not fit into what people actually want and they actually want to live around. And we also need to look at the small-scale HMOs, which are in keeping with the road, give some people a choice, and don't destroy the local areas. I can give an example of houses down Shadwell Road, for example. I think that's a good place to start, where you've got HMOs where they are actually stripping out the character of the old building, and basically it is just bung them in there, bung 8 people to a house in a long straight road because it fits with policy. In my mind, that's not right. It's not actually helping those people living in rabbit hutches either. I think we need good quality, affordable housing across the board. And unfortunately, I don't think anyone really wants to have that conversation and answer those real pertinent questions.
Thank you, Scott. So, Mazzy, the balance of somewhere affordable to live versus HMOs, where do you stand?
It's really funny because when I first came to Portsmouth is when I first lived in a HMO. For that, I had no clue what a HMO was. And I think something that doesn't get talked about with it as well is how dangerous some of them can be. The first one I lived in, unfortunately, wasn't a safe situation. The last 2, luckily, were. But I think limits needs to also be something that are looked at, because everyone deserves a roof over their head. People deserve a house that is accessible to them. And not everyone has the accessibility or wants to go and share a house with other people, where some people do. I think the aspects of it being seen as cheaper rent, I think it depends where you are in your lifestyle, but it shouldn't be that we are putting people into HMOs because they just need a roof over their house. It should be their choice if they want to live there. But I think with how it is rising, it is having an effect on the area. It is having an effect on people that live in the area. And I think it's also having an effect on parking, which I would talk about a lot later as well. I think is once again is accessibility. Would people go into a HMO to begin with if other options were available to them? And I think we've really seen the rise of HMOs recently, unfortunately under the government. I think unfortunately under the government we have seen a rise of HMOs because it's come a lot down to money. Low interest rates.
We kind of lost the last 10 seconds of what Mazzy said then. I don't know whether Ian, whether...
Yep, I lost that as well. Yeah. So we had a bit of a break up on the audio.
Did you want to just cover
I was
your
just
last
saying,
10 seconds
a
again?
lot of those were bought when interest rates were also quite low. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just didn't want to lose that bit of your response.
Neither you come back. I'll pass you to Simon.
Okay, so our next question. So Hilsea Lido's been had periods of inactivities. Have been activity for years. It is thus a target for vandalism. How can it be turned back into a useful resource? And I'll ask that first to Mazzy, please.
So I think Hilsea Lido is such a beautiful place with beautiful history. And some people might not also be aware that it's actually a registered charity as well. I think in March, they just did some more work on it to restore and renovate it. But what would be really great is, not just from the council, from other places, there are a lot of grants that are available for other people to go in there. So for example, for elderly people to go in there and do some work in there, or for disabled people to go in there, we can get some grants and actually make that happen. It's been quite a quintessential part of the community for quite a while, and I was lucky to have to pass it quite often when I had to go to work. It's something that has always sort of been used in the community, and I guess we've also, with Hilsea Lido renovating and doing the restoring work, is how do we get the community involved in doing that, to actually help it get ready in a way that is not going to take away from them, but actually be part of what they want to do. I think a funny sort of example is when you look at gardening, you don't really see anyone gardening in the winter, but I think in summer, there's a lot that could be done, and there's finances out there to be able to get it, not just from the government, but from a lot of other people, and that do want to be involved in actually building an area again.
Thank you very much. And Scott, same question, please.
Thank you, Simon. The Hilsea Lido has obviously had significant money from the Levelling Up Fund that was secured by I think that was back last year from the government. I think nearly £9 million has been secured for that and the Linear Park project. What we have done with Hilsea Lido, which I think is a real testament to the council's engagement team, actually. We've engaged with the schools, we've engaged with the local community, we've engaged with businesses in the area to actually look at what we want to put on that space, to obviously create a Lido that actually works for the longer term, not just for a couple of years, that works for the next 30, 35 years, something that is sustainable. And I think that's quite important, to also use a space that's not just for a swimming pool, but is for multiple functions. I think that is something about making the Lido key moving forward. And a lot of work has gone into that, and I'm hoping we'll have the vision for the Lido shortly. I'm very keen to see that happen. The Lido Trust have done a fantastic job up until now, and securing this funding was very important for them. But I think it's just a testament of what can be done in that area. I think you already have the BMX pump track. You have what I call an excellent cafe at the end with the Hilsea Lions Cafe, which I'd recommend anyone to go and use who have created a business model in that area that I think is going to stand the test of time. But what I would also add is the area has had some antisocial behaviour. So if we bring this project forward, it will not only will it eliminate that because people have something to be really proud of, but also there are CCTV cameras that run from the Lido to the Mountbatten, so the shoreline area as well is protected. You can't go anywhere. unless you're under surveillance walking down that end. So, you know, there is an exceptional project going on with the Lido, and I just want to, hopefully I'll be here to see it to fruition after May the 4th. And I recommend everyone to keep engaging with the project to really shape it, because at the moment it's got the potential to be something extremely special.
Thank you very much, Scott. Does either of you need to make use of your rebuttal on that question? Sorry, was that you wanting to come back on that one, Mazzy, or?
No, what? No.
Okay, no, that's all right. Don't worry. That's fine. Okay, so Ian.
So with rising costs of energy, food, and all parties agreeing 4.99% council tax rise, I think everyone acknowledges there's a cost of living crisis. What more should the local council be doing to support residents? And can I ask that first, please, to Scott?
Thank you, Ian. I mean, the Household Support Fund is currently being administered by county councils and usury authorities to the tune of 2.5 billion across the country. And this is obviously coupled with the council's hardship fund, which all groups supported recently at the budget that was agreed. You know, obviously what the government have done with housing benefit, you obviously get the £900 cost of living payment, the energy price guarantee, saving the average household, I think, about £160 per month, per part of the period. £300 cost of living payment for pensioners. We've also got the £150 for people on disability benefits, but also benefits were increased, along with pensions to the tune of 10.1%. So that was within line with inflation. So it's helping people in need. I mean, the council has done a great job, and I mean, I'm going to be honest about it. This is an issue where the council is all clubbed together. I mean, all groups have done an exceptional job to try and ensure that those people that are suffering get the help that they need. I just want to touch on some of the work that Penny Mordaunt's done with the food pantry. She's obviously launched the food pantry that went in Baffins, and we've also had the food pantry that are currently in Paulsgrove, and we are potentially looking for a site to put in Hilsea, so obviously people can go and get their food with dignity as well in these tough times, because it is causing, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, everyone is in it together. I mean, we're all having the same struggles, but on different levels, shall we say. But no, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Scott. So, Mazzy, cost of living crisis, what more should the council be doing?
We've just lost Mazzy again. So that is unfortunately rather poorly timed.
Yep.
Her internet has obviously decided to give up on her. So
no worries. So just while we're waiting for Mazzy to return, we'll do a little bit of plugging for the rest of this year's political hustings season. So whilst the hustings are done today, for those of you that enjoy a good laugh, on Wednesday evening at 6:27, we will be having our by now annual results prediction show, where Simon will once again attempt to wipe the floor with me in terms of predictions for who will win what in Portsmouth. So even all those candidates who have spent hours and hours pounding the pavements can tune in and hope that Simon backs them more than I do. But I think this could be my year. I'm feeling blindly optimistic. And then early to bed on the Wednesday night, as for the first time, we will be live at the count on Thursday night going into Friday morning. So we're just working out technically how we're going to make that work and how many energy drinks we'll need to take with us. But yeah, we hope to be broadcasting live from Portsmouth Guildhall throughout the count and getting the uncut raw emotions of both the winners and the losers as each of the results is announced.
You've filled that tremendously, Ian, and as if by design, Mazzy has made it back in. So let me just
marvelous.
Hi, yes, internet problems once again.
No worries at all, Mazzy.
So the question was about the
Yep. So the question was cost of living crisis. What more should the local council be doing?
Just give it a second. I think it's just settling down. Ian, if you just want to rephrase, go for the question again.
Yeah. Yeah. So in terms of this question, Mazzy, it's the cost of living crisis. What more should the council be doing?
So I think it is good that we've secured a grant, but also we need to make sure that the money does go to the people that need it. I think also mentioning the food pantry is, well, yes, people need access to food, but also getting a food.
Ugh. Oh no.
Yep.
Okay, so give me a moment. What I'm going to try and do is try and see if we can't secure Mazzy with a telephone call. So do give me a moment while I sort that out.
I'm sorry, I'm back again.
Oh, you're back. Okay.
I don't know why it keeps glitching.
Okay, you're back.
Let's give it another go. You'd only just started, so from the top, Mazzy.
Sorry, I was saying, so I know that Scott mentioned the food pantry, but I think we also need to be aware that currently there are more food banks in this country than there are McDonald's, which is a really harsh reality hit, in fact, because there's a lot of McDonald's, I would know. But also getting to access free food is also a lot of struggle that is happening currently within the city, that I know because I also had to go through the same thing. I think people need to know what they're entitled to and how they're entitled to it. I think they need to actually, instead of going on the website all the time, people need to know they can go to their counsellor. People need to know they can go for different caseworks. People need to know what they have access to. I think Pompey B is a great concept that's happened. It's not just me under Labour that have signed it. Other people who are campaigning, but other different parties have also signed the Pompey B pledge, because participatory budgeting is something that can really help make sure we get the money to people that need it by actually getting them involved in the process. There's also grants out there that people aren't told about. There's things out there that people aren't told about. I say that because I unfortunately had to go on to Universal Credit and try and sort myself out after leaving a really tumultuous job. We see more people leaving jobs now that are actually really dangerous to live in and not knowing where to go and what to do. So people need to be supported through different aspects, because the problem right now is higher than it has been like the last decade. I think that is a really harsh reality. People are suffering more than they ever have, especially with the prices of rised gas and bills. People are literally dying in their houses, and it's impacting their mental health. And also people don't know where to turn. People don't know what they're entitled to. People don't know that if you have trouble at work, you can get something called an FOI, a freedom of information inquest. People don't know they can put in grievances. So it's not just people that are in work and out work, it's both people that are really struggling because of the poverty levels, having things that are added on and making it more complex. And that we could see a lot of that in Hilsea. People in Hilsea are going through it right now. People in Hilsea are struggling right now without knowing where quite to turn, even though there's a counsellor in the area.
Thank you, Mazzy. Either of you want to come back on any of those points?
Scott?
Yeah, it's just I want to put a bit of clarity in between the difference between a food bank and a food pantry. Community pantries, they offer people access to affordable and healthy food. They often work on a membership basis, so it allows people to sign up and to go and shop as they would normally. What that does is obviously it tackles the stigma and gives people more independence rather than going to a food bank, which is obviously a referral. Which obviously I think Mazzy's made a key point about the fact that the access to food banks can be difficult for some people, where the pantries are a lot easier, so people can actually go there and pay their annual fee and go for a shop. Pantries are quite often run voluntary, and they are aimed at helping those who possibly wouldn't qualify to go to a food bank as well. I just want to clarify the difference between the two.
Thank you, Scott. Mazzy, anything to add?
I don't know if Scott's ever had to go to a food bank or food pantry. If most people already need a food bank, they can't afford a food pantry. Certain people can, which is great, because some people do actually need that access. So it's great for people who can afford that. Not all food banks require food bank vouchers as well. If you're watching this and you're struggling with food, not all food bank vouchers require, food banks require vouchers. And I think that also needs to be more done to get people access to food and food banks in different parts of Portsmouth. In Hilsea, a food pantry is great, but not everyone can afford it.
I think on that point, if it's ever been to use one, I'm just going to actually make a point. I may be a Tory with a double-barreled name, but I am a kid from a council estate. So I just put that out there, that I do know what it's like to be at the bottom of the barrel.
Thank you, guys. In the interest of time, I'm going to move you to Simon for the next question, please.
Okay. So here's a subject that universally reaches agreement, is usually brings out the peace in politics in Portsmouth. So one of the islands, only 3 connections to the mainland, sits in the ward, with many houses, meaning many people and many cars. How would you address the traffic and parking problems? And if I can ask that first to Mazzy, please.
Sorry, it's okay if you just give me a second. I've recently gotten a diagnosis of CPTSD, and sometimes little words do trigger me. It's not about anything or anyone. It's just how my brain reacts to certain things. So just give me one second. I do apologise.
No, that's fine. Do you
Mazzy, do you want me to go first?
If that's okay, I'm just going to turn my video off for a second as well. I hope no one minds.
No, take your time, please. I'll go first. It's fine.
Not a problem. Okay, Scott.
Now, obviously, we're talking about the issue of parking. I think, wow, if I had the silver bullet to solve the parking issue, I think I'd be carried through the streets of Portsmouth. I think the issue of traffic, I think we're having the works of the Portsmouth roundabout, which is going to make connectivity for bus services better and also ensure they run on time. We've also had the great news that the new centre has been purchased to obviously put the electric buses there. So Hilsea is going to be quite a hub for transport, as it always has, which I think is a great thing for the ward. But to actually to secure the issue that we have with traffic, I think it's a multifaceted issue. So we need to create better infrastructure in Portsmouth, and I think that is the problem that we've had over a longer term. I'll give you a great example. I mean, you guys know that I chair a licensing committee. It took us nearly 2.5 years to ensure that private hire vehicles can go through bus lanes, which will speed up journeys for passengers to get around the city. That's now been implemented only in I think it's 6 of the bus lanes out of the over 50 that we have, obviously as part of the trial. Once that goes citywide, it'll ensure that obviously passengers who can get from one end of town to the other in an affordable time as well, affordably and within good time. So, for example, it's probably cheaper for Simon and Ian to get in a cab and go from Cosham to Southsea than it is for you to probably get on a bus together, because the affordability of what's there. And that's another issue that the council is looking at. And I've been quite actually proud of the work that we've been doing to ensure that obviously getting the government, especially getting £2 journeys. I think that's been important that we did throughout March. And the council obviously doing free buses on a Sunday. I did actually quite support that idea. But it's all about accessibility to transport, and this is going to sound really negative, but getting people out of their cars and using public transport. And the only way you're going to do that is by actually having public transport that actually works. And in Portsmouth at the moment, getting a bus isn't easy. The voice scooters, in my opinion, they have an ability to work, but we don't have the infrastructure for them. And we also need to ensure that we create a better cycle network. And coupled with those 3 things, it needs to be a long-term strategic project. Parking is a silver bullet that I just don't have. The Conservative group have always stood on the issue that we believe in a citywide parking referendum in terms of for resident parking zones. I still believe that we should do that, and that's been our long-standing position. But thank you.
Thank you very much, Scott. Mariam, welcome back. You okay?
Thank you. Yes. So I think it needs to be said, like council houses, there's nothing wrong with living in a council house. It doesn't mean you're bottom of the barrel or anything. And I think that just needs to be said really quickly. If you live in a council house, you're Gucci. I grew up in a council flat, and actually I was really happy inside. So just want to rectify that, say that quickly.
Okay. Thank you. And in regards to this question about parking and traffic in the ward.
So I don't know if you want to put the timer on, or that's what I've been looking at to sort of check my time.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I was waiting for you to start speaking. That's all right.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, so it is great that Hilsea has such a link to so many different places. I think something that does really need to be reevaluated is parking permits, especially for local residents. I don't believe they work, and also the money doesn't really go to where it needs to go as well. There's so much that can be done with that. But what we could do is actually look at more abandoned buildings around the areas, Hilsea, like Quick Save, there's Dublington Avenue and different areas, and look at what can be utilised to actually access with parking in the area. Hilsea is a great location where it has those different spots. I think recently when the council were doing free travel on Sunday, that was great, but I think that's something that kind of needs to be maintained for people who actually do want to go out and utilise that and go out further out from Hilsea or coming into Hilsea. Hilsea has so many beautiful parts that are there, and so many beautiful shops and so many things that really are beautiful, that I loved when I first came to the city and I first saw it. I also think looking at parking fines as well, I think that needs to be reevaluated, as the price really doesn't reflect the current standard of the living crisis. I think it sounds really bad to say, but parking permits are not benefiting the residents in the area, because visitors can also get permits. So I think for that to work better with people coming to the city, that needs to be reevaluated.
Okay, fantastic, thank you. Scott, you've already got your hand up for your 30-second rebuttal. Away you go.
It's just in relation to parking permits. Any funds that are raised by the traffic and transportation portfolio via parking permits has to go back in the traffic and transportation portfolio. It's effectively ring fenced. You can't spend that money on other things. And to be honest, you would, with the greatest respect, you wouldn't know that. The only reason I know that is because I'm our traffic and transportation spokesperson for the Conservative group. So I know that because that's the financial rules that have been set. So I just wanted to put some clarity about that's what happens with the funding.
Okay, thank you. Mazzy, do you need your rebuttal on that one at all, or are you happy to move on?
Sorry, my brain literally went blank as I was hearing what you were saying, Scott. I think a big issue is, and what I hear a lot of, is that certain things bring money into the city, but that money doesn't go to the people that need it. So the money the city gets, it's great that the money goes back into the council, but it only goes into this one part that you would know a lot about, because that's what you work in. So it's great that we have loads of people coming to the city and loads of money coming into the city through parking and things, but it needs to be reevaluated, because there are a lot of people in the city, especially in Hilsea, that are struggling, that don't get anything from that money that comes in. But you work in the department, so you would know more than I do.
Thank you both. And so we will move on to question 7. So question 7. So if we think about Hilsea, and we listed some of the things at the at the start. What's the one kind of amenity that the people of Hilsea either want or need that they don't have? What is it that they're looking for, Scott?
Thank you, Ian. I mean, I touched on this earlier regarding the issue of antisocial behaviour, and it's been a big issue over the last 2 years. And something that I really felt passionately about, that I really wanted to do, was create youth provision, and for kids to have something to do. Because children, I mean, it's not like it was 15, 20 years ago when I was younger, and they would put football on, or you do something like play cricket, or you go and do rugby. Nowadays children have changed their behaviours. They want to do coding, they want to fix motorbikes. There's all elements of different things that they want to do in this new technological age. But I wanted to put £40,000 in. I did put £40,000 into the Conservative budget amendment through the Play and Youth Service to obviously commission some outreach work into the local area around Howard Road, where the ASB is currently has been a problem over the last few months and years. It was voted down by all groups on the council, which was a shame, because I think that would have made a significant difference to people's lives. I also have recently, as part of that project, I met with Motivate, who do commission services. But that's something that I'm really passionate about. I think it would have real impact in the area, but it's going to cost money to do so, which is why the current youth investment bid is really important for Howard Road, because I think that's something that I have a real passion around, because I think those people really need something for them, and I think it will change a lot of young people's lives in the meantime. So that's something that I really believe that would be a good thing for Hilsea.
Thank you, Scott. I think as that answer was being given, I heard Mazzy sign out. Are you back there, Mazzy?
Not just yet, Ian. No.
No worries.
So, and again, as if by magic, give me a second. Welcome back, Mazzy.
No worries. And Mezzy, thank you ever so much for bearing with us. Appreciate that this is your first hustings. So at the
No,
moment,
it's really funny. That's the
Yep.
first thing I watched when I came to Portsmouth and I first heard of Pompey politics. I really involved, like I love local politics. I find it fascinating. And I remember watching so many different hustings, which means you'd think I'd know to get my Wi-Fi sorted out for it, right?
No problem at all. So if I can just ask you the same question, please, Mazzy, which is what is the amenity that the people of Hilsea want or need but don't have?
I think accessibility is a real big issue. And by that, I don't mean as if whether you're disabled or not. I think accessibility to do things that you want to go, do you go places you want to go to without finances being an issue or different things being an issue that take part in personal life. I think this is something that we especially see happening during the winter. A lot of people that I talked to were talking about how in winter, they're really struggling being inside with how cold it was. And I think warm spaces have really helped with that. But I think when we look at the word accessibility, you've got to look at it from such a range of things. And I think that's something that is really missing. And for people to know how to get things that they need and go to places that they need to. I know there is a counsellor in the area. But I think maybe because of different experiences that I had, I've learned that I've had to go to find out the information that I need to find out to be able to try and make a slight change in what's happening. Things are really difficult now for a lot of people, especially in Hilsea, yet alone the country, the rise of cost of living. And I think it sounds almost quite funny to say, but I think hope. I think hope has been missing from a lot of us over this cold winter. And I think we need to be able to prove that there's still a reason to hold on to hope and where we can go to get that hope and how we can actually try and actually utilise what we've got around us.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mazzy. Either of you want to come back? Then I'll throw you to Simon. Simon.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we've done some sums. The almost certain outcome of this election is that the council will remain in no overall control. Which means that no one party is gonna make their way to 22 seats. How would you ensure that you get the best deal for the ward's residents? And can I ask that first to Mazzy, please? No.
Sorry, did you say my name or Scott's name?
Oh, sorry, yours, Mazzy. Sorry.
Okay, so I think it's great that we're talking about the residents, right? But we need to talk to the residents. So I can sit here and I can tell you that we need to make sure we have proper access to healthcare. I can tell you about the fly tipping on Stubbington Road. I can tell you about different things that need to be sorted in Hilsea, but also we forget about different caseworks that happen. We forget about how life interrupts and people do need to go and actually get help with different caseworks. And it sounds a bit ironic, but I guess unless you actually realise that you...
Mazzy's just frozen then for a second. I'm just trying to see whether whether our internet recovers. Don't know if you can still hear us, Mazzy, but our end you've completely frozen. Is she frozen for everybody else?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. what I'll do then, while Mazzy tries to sort that out, Scott, can I put that question to you, and then I'll give Mazzy some time to finish off her. Oh, you back? No. Oh, back. Okay. Hello. Sorry. We kind of lost you there for a bit, so I don't know if you want to kind of carry on your remarks there, Mazzy, or just kind of repeat back a bit of what you were saying, because we kind of lost you there for about a good 20 seconds. And we have got you frozen again. Okay. What I'm going to do is... Oh. Mazzy, can you still... I don't know, because our end you're frozen. So I'm going to give you some time to try and get that sorted. Message me if hopefully you can hear this, and that's still a problem. If need be, I can send you the codes to dial in as a telephone call. In the meantime, let me put that question to Scott so that we can at least move on while you try to sort that out without the time pressure on there. Scott, no overall control.
No, I mean, the first thing that I think would be getting the best deal for Hilsea residents would be removing the Liberal Democrat administration. I think that is the first thing that needs to be done. It's no secret that they have run the council for the last 17 out of 21 years. You know, we've had decades of dither and delay from the Liberal Democrats. I mean, that's the first thing I would do. And it's no secret that the last leadership election, the Labour Party and the Independents actually voted for a Liberal Democrat administration. You know, so the Conservatives, again, are the only ones that are willing to remove the Liberal Democrats from running the council, you know. But certainly, I mean, working at a ward level, you have to talk about ensuring that we have positive and respectful relationships between members and officers in the council. I think sometimes councillors get nowhere because they're obviously being pushy and abrupt. We need to work collaboratively. And when we do that, especially as members and with officers, I mean, we actually do good for the greater city. I think Acquin's a great example of that and shows what can be achieved if needed to. You know, and often members get nowhere because they don't want to. They don't want to actually put those things aside. I think a good example would be the work that myself and Councillor Williams have done cross-party with some of the other councillors regarding the closure of the pharmacy in London Road, where actually I'm going to name drop two Liberal Democrat councillors that actually have been quite helpful, Councillor Horton and Councillor Winnington, in delivering information. So those two have been helpful, but I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. I think the best deal for any resident of the city would be to remove the Liberal Democrats from power, because for too long they have wasted money and taken Portsmouth to a place it doesn't need to go or shouldn't be going. And they have been aided and abetted, unfortunately, in the last leadership election by the Labour Party and the Independents.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Welcome back, Mazzy. Did you want to carry on your points there? I'm not quite sure kind of where you got to, but if I give you kind of the last 30 seconds of your point to wrap up.
In fact, no, I would like to do a rebuttal instead, if that's okay.
Okay.
So I believe, from what I missed, Scott said that there was a rise in antisocial behaviour because kids have changed and want to code more and get their motorbikes fixed. No,
that's
okay.
That's... So I don't know whether
I will say.
So this was the question about the mathematical likelihood of any group on the council having overall control, so therefore getting to a total of 22 councillors is exceedingly unlikely, if not mathematically impossible. So bearing that in mind, that the council will again be in no overall control, would you get the best deal for Hilsea's residents? That was the question. So sorry, I don't know whether if that's got a bit muddled up in the to and fro. Have we lost you again? Oh no.
This internet's being a bit like, as you can tell.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Thank you so much for bearing with it.
I think something that doesn't get talked about a lot is FOIs and how general public are entitled to receive freedom of information inquest and get them within 28 working days, which actually helps get certain things sorted out, because then you've got the evidence that you've given a company or a business or the council given back to you. I don't know if any party in particular is going to get all the seats. I do know the council do work really hard, though. I do know, even though there's different parties on the council, I do know that things are pushed aside so that people do work together, and it's about who is best for the ward.
Okay, lovely, thank you. Scott, did
So
you need to make use of your rebuttal on that one, or are we all right to move on?
Just in the interest of time,
Yeah.
guys, we've got 3 questions left, and we are already significantly over time. So I don't really want to cut any of the questions. So if you do have the ability just to keep things very brief in the next few questions, that would be much appreciated.
Okay, so Ian, are you good for the next question?
Yep. So I'm ready for question 9. Very simple. Antisocial behaviour is a problem across Portsmouth, and there are hotspots in Hilsea. What's your solution, Scott?
Thank you for the question, Ian. I mean, the solution that we've had in, for example, Howard Road is probably the biggest hotspot we've had in Hilsea. Operation Relief was something that was launched last year that ensured that we had more police patrolling, which was very important. We also seen the police uplift as well. So obviously we have more officers come into the force, which has actually enabled Hilsea to have more police provision, which has seen more visibility of bobbies on the beat. And also, I think there does need to be more to be done on frontline policing. But I think the I'm going to say this because I just am. The Office of Police and Crime Commissioner is committed to ensuring that we do have more police on the beat. But also, we myself, and I include Councillor Daniel Williams in this, have been very, very good at getting patrollable CCTV, deployable cameras, and we've shone a light on these issues that have been, and reporting has improved on the basis of it. And the police are actually using these deployable cameras around the ward. So, for example, we had one in Military Road, Matapan Road, St Barbara Way, Howard Road. They are dotted around in key places that ensure that those people that are causing a nuisance are under surveillance, and the police can actively get the footage and prosecute these people that are causing problems. But there is always more to be done. And I think, like I said earlier, I mentioned about youth provision. I think that is an important thing as well that I feel really passionate about. But I know we're strung for time, so I'm not going to go on too much about it because I've spoken at Reach already about the multi-agency working as well.
Thank you, Scott, for the brevity. And Mazzy, antisocial behaviour, what's your solution?
I think we've really got to look at what is causing antisocial behaviour and how the mass closures of youth clubs also helped rise that, where there are not enough places for young people to actually go. I think extra police on the street, I get it. But however, people are also scared of police. And if you've ever been young and ever been in trouble, some people aren't scared of police. The police won't actually have that much impact on a young person who's just trying to be out there. And I've seen some of the antisocial behaviour that does go on as well. Young people are actually some of the most easiest people to talk to sometimes, and just need a place to actually go to that is safe and actually the space for them. When it comes to crime itself, antisocial behaviour, I think it's not just young people that are committing antisocial behaviour. I think something that has been talked about, especially quite recently, is how many people break the law and aren't aware of it. And it's actually quite a high number of people. I think when it comes to young people, let's do what we can to actually ensure their future, for them to do what they need to do, instead of potentially ruining their future. I get surveillance can help to know what's going on in the area, especially if something's going on. But to really protect in the first place, and we know the closure of youth clubs really, really helped that skyrocket. It's like the crime in St Vincent went up when there were less jobs to do. And that tends to be what happens when in certain areas.
Thank you, Mazzy. Thank you both for the brevity of your answers. Unless there are any burning points, I will pass you on to Simon for question 10.
Okay, thank you, Ian. So with an ageing population, what more needs to be done in Hilsea to support this group? And that's first to Mazzy, please.
I think something that's quite ironic is that we, who are older people, aging people are older people, when they are people that have really been in the area longer than any other people, and who actually need more accessibility to be able to go out into areas and actually be able to link. I remember when my dad was younger, there was actually a sort of youth club thing that he would go to with other people around about the same age as him. But also, I think we need to check in a lot more on people that we do know are vulnerable, especially considering that an old woman died in her house because it was too cold and her grandson found her. So now the problems that are facing the older population isn't just around age, but it's also around price and the cost of living crisis. So we need to make sure that enough is actually in there to support them around a multitude of things. When it comes to also getting appointments for anyone is hard, but getting appointments when, if you're older, can be a lot more dangerous, because a lot more things can be unnoticed and unchecked, causing more money to the NHS in the long run, because things aren't known, appointments aren't gotten. A lot of older people sometimes are by themselves as well. They don't, like, I'm very lucky that I can help my parents over their phone because of technology. But I think we really need to do more to actually be side by side with our residents that have been in Hilsea for a long time, and actually do more to make sure that they are comfortable, and they are comfortable in Hilsea.
Fantastic, thank you very much. And same please to Scott.
Thank you, Simon. I think health and well-being is very important for an aging population, to ensure that they are obviously in good health longer, but also that we have the facilities that they need as well. What I will notice is I think it was in March it was last month actually, the government published its 4th annual report on the loneliness strategy, which I think is important to ensure that we can, I think Mazzy touched on the issues of older people in communities, and I think that's fundamentally important. It's also creating better connectivity for them as well, to ensure that they can get around the city. So, for example, they can still go and do their shopping, they can still have parts of their routine, because a lot of these people will not speak to anyone for 3 or 4 days. And it's something that I've definitely noted when I've been out on the campaign trail. And when I'm out, to be fair, when I'm out all year round, I know that there are old people in the ward that probably I am the first person they spoke to in 4 days when I've knocked their door, and I could quite happily be there for an hour. So I think tackling that loneliness is important, and giving them better places to go, more connectivity around the city to ensure that they can go to these places. And that comes from better bus routes and, timely taxi services, but also community events in the area. So, for example, I was at St Nicholas Church yesterday for a community event, and there were a lot of older people who were part of the church that actually came in, and they one lady actually remarked that I was the first person she spoke to outside of her family in over 4 days. I think that's a startling statistic we need to look at, to ensure that we can create these more events for older people to actually do things. And I think that's quite important.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Scott. Either of you need your rebuttal on that one? No, in which case, Ian.
So final question, and always difficult for anybody with political aspirations to focus in on just one thing. But if you were successful in winning the election on Thursday, what is the one thing that you'd want to have changed by the end of your term? And can I ask that first to Scott, please?
It would be ensuring that the policy around houses of multiple occupation is significantly changed, because at the moment it is all in the benefit of the developer and not towards the residents and the people that have to live in those communities. If I could have a magic wand tomorrow to solve that burning issue, that is the one thing that I would like to do, because I know that it would make a lot of residents happy around the Hilsea ward, because they are sick to death of HMOs blighting their street, causing extra parking, extra rubbish, tenants who aren't the professionals that are promised by developers. Developers say we're going to promise they're going to be exciting young professionals. They're not. I mean, I give examples of houses that have been raided by the police. You've had houses used for one was a cannabis factory, for example. So these do blight people's communities, and they do change the fabric of that community, and which is unfortunate. But if I had the magic wand tomorrow, Ian, that is the one thing that I would like to change, and it's something that not only myself but my fellow ward councillor, Councillor Dan Weems, has worked really hard on. I've got to give props out to Councillor Ben Swan for getting the licensing policy changed on enforcement, because I think that's a big thing as well. But yeah, that's the one thing that I would really, really like to see changed if I had a magic wand tomorrow.
Thank you, Scott. So, Mazzy, same question to yourself. If you were successful on Thursday, what's the one thing you'd want to have changed by the end of your term?
I think making sure everyone has access to health and to be able to get medical help when necessary. That also includes letting residents know about something called Lifey or Sapphire, where some people actually use cannabis as medication, and you can legally get that prescribed privately in the UK. If you can't do that, there's something called a CAN card, because different people react different way in different health situations. Something I saw a lot in the psych ward is people not knowing when it gets to that point because of the struggle. And I think one of the things that really does concern me, especially in Hilsea, is about the pharmacy and about the GP, because it's already hard enough to get the medical health care that you need, and that actually helps you live your day-to-day life. Access to health is a human right. Being able to be healthy is the bare minimum. Being able to maintain health with the help of your doctor is the bare minimum. And I think, especially not just for the people of Hilsea, but all over, when that doesn't happen, you really see the effects come into society, and you really see the effects affect every person's day-to-day life. So I think that right there is a crucial point of actually making sure that the pharmacy doesn't, because with those guns, things are only going to get harder. And that is a really harsh reality. Things are only going to get harder. I froze him. Yeah, I froze him.
A little bit. You just come back at the end there, Mazzy. So we lost just a couple of words in there, but I think your message was very clear around the need for GP access and the pharmacy being crucial to people living their lives. So thank you both for those answers. That brings us to the end of our questions. We will now go to closing speeches. It's my understanding that whilst Peter Williams provided us with an opener, I don't think he provided us with a closer, Simon.
I apologise, Ian. I misinformed you. There was indeed a closing,
Marvellous,
albeit a short closing statement. So,
in which case, then it's you first, Simon, on behalf of Peter Williams, with the closing addresses.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Just give me a second. Okay, so this is the closing speech on behalf of Peter Williams, the Liberal Democrat candidate. In these elections, ignore the false promises and deceptive messaging, including those of future general election policies, and use your vote to elect a strong local champion who can be at the heart of decision-making in the city, in the LibDem team leading the City Council, but to also send the government a message about their Partygate double standards, sleaze and cost of living crisis, if you want. And those were the words provided by Peter Williams. So that was his closing speech. And then next up is Mazzy. So if you just give me a second, I'll let you know when we're ready for you, Mazzy. Okay, we're ready when you are. We're good when you are, Mazzy.
My closing statement is going to be a bit of a different one. Have I phrased it again?
No, you're okay. No, you're fine.
Okay, phew, what a relief. With my closing statement, what I really do want to highlight is I'm not doing this for, I do this because I really care about Hilsea and I really love Portsmouth, which is why I haven't moved out. I consider myself an expat, which is why I'm going to let people specifically know who are working. If you have any problems with your employer, join a union, but also everyone is entitled to a freedom of information inquest and a data subject access where you can get all the information you need within 28 days to take legal action if you need to. And that is something we are all entitled to. And I think more people need to know that. More people need to know what they can do. More people need to hear about ACAS. More people need to know where they can get help when they're on universal credits. I think people need to be able to live their life and be given what they need to live their life. They need safe housing. They need good health access. That is what the people of Hilsea need, and that's what they need right now. And that's what I want to bring to Hilsea with Labour.
Thank you, Mazzy. Okay, and next up is Scott. So if you can just give me a moment, Scott. and I'll let you know when we're good and ready for you. Okay, Scott, your closing speech when you're ready, please.
I mean, a vote. I would encourage people to go out and vote for me, because I'm someone who has campaigned actively on HMOs, dealing with abandoned vehicles, on the streets, working with police and patrolling with them multiple times over the last 18 months, secured funding for new CCTV cameras, funding to prevent illegal travel encampment in Alexandra Park, and money for new play parks in Gatcombe Park. People want councillors who are visible, people that respond. They don't want people that make unfunded or uncosted promises, and they want people that deliver on what they promise. They want someone who's going to try, and no matter what happens, I'm not going to promise the world, but what I will promise is that I will work hard, and I've always done that. What I will say to voters, though, when they go to the polling station and they cast a vote for me is someone who cares deeply about the area, someone who's local, someone who knows the area. A vote for Labour is going to keep the Liberal Democrats in control by default. A vote for the Independents is going to do exactly the same. If you want real change, you have to vote for it. And the only way you can change this city council is by voting for the Conservatives.
Okay, thank you very much, Scott. So our last speech is from Emily Strudwick, who's the Portsmouth Independence Party candidate, which I will be reading out on her behalf. And just to re-emphasise, I'm obviously reading that exactly as it's written, and in the person that it's written. So just give me a second. Okay, so I will keep my closing statement short and sweet. Hilsea has many challenges coming its way. I hope the residents of Hilsea can support me this Thursday and vote for me. As I've said to residents at the doors, I won't promise the world, but I will promise you I will do my best. That is what I offer to the residents of Hilsea, my full support, dedication and determination to do everything I possibly can to improve the local community and the lives of the people who live within it.
Marvellous. Thank you, Simon, for covering that for Emily. And I'd like to thank both Scott and Mazzy for being with us here tonight, and Mazzy particularly for wrestling with the internet there to make sure that your points came across. Again, this is our 7th hustings, and what's important in all of this is to give the people of Portsmouth the opportunity to hear from their candidates and then to place their votes wisely. So thank you both. Best of luck for the last few days of the campaign and on the 4th. And you've been listening to the Pompey Politics Podcast. I've been Ian Tiny Morris.
And our guests this evening have been Scott Payter-Harris for the Conservative Party and Mariam Daniel, or Mazzy D, for Labour. I've been Simon Sansbury. Join us for our next episode, which will be at 6:27 on Elections Eve, when we make our predictions for the elections on May the 4th. So remember, May the 4th, you need photo ID to be able to vote in person. Set a reminder on your phone. See you Wednesday.